Okay, I'm making this video to talk about what a good job Donald Trump is doing at keeping us out of full-scale war. Now, I want you to remember back to the elections in November 2016 when it was Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton, and Russia had announced that if Hillary Clinton wins the election, they're going to take us to war, okay? The threats were real back then, in the same way that since we've had nuclear alerts in, Japan and Hawaii. We've seen aircraft crashing, U.S. aircraft crashing. We've seen tensions in, China, tensions in Syria, just South China Sea, North Korea, Iran, what's going on with Turkey, Israel, everything. I thought we would have gone to full-scale war by now. Thank God. Thank God we haven't. But here's the thing. It's all a bunch of political negotiation and game playing that's going on with Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un and Putin. So we need to be thanking God that we haven't gone to full-scale war. Okay? And, but the Bible says that, okay, first of all, if you understand the book of Revelation, and you got to get a revelation of the book of Revelation, you can't just listen to some other teachers who are teaching teachings from the 70s. The Lord showed me that it's only in like recent years that you could identify the actual characteristics of the beast, the government of the Antichrist. So the government of the Antichrist is a combination of 7 nations with 10 leaders. Those 7 nations are Russia and China, North Korea, Iran, and Turkey. That's 5 of them, okay? Islam, in general, may be one of the 7 nations. And then there's 10 leaders of the government of the Antichrist. One of them is Putin, Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping. Now, if we look at what's going on with Venezuela and how Venezuela runs the government, they don't care about the people at all. If you watch any documentaries about the rise of, I can't remember the leader, Madrone, or the current leader in Venezuela, if you look at the state of their country and the ideology behind the leaders, and how Russia is backing any nation. I mean, look how Kim Jong-un treats their people. Look how China treats their people. Look how Venezuela treats their people. This is how the Antichrist government is going to treat the people of the earth. The only good jobs when the government of the Antichrist does rise up and the mark of the beast comes out, the only good jobs are going to be government jobs serving the Antichrist. So, basically, what I'm saying is Donald Trump has done a good job of holding back that final war, in which case the government of the Antichrist wins, and that's the 6th seal. The sky is rolled up like a scroll. The Bible in Revelation chapter 6, starting in verse 12, the 6th seal actually describes full-scale thermonuclear war. And if thermonuclear war were to happen, it would be a fulfillment of the 6th seal, where the stars fall from the sky, then the sky is rolled up like a scroll. Meanwhile, everybody's hiding in the dens of the rocks and the caves of the mountains. These are bomb shelters and fallout shelters. The sky being rolled up like a scroll is a mushroom cloud. And that's also the sign in the sky of the coming of the Son of Man. Now, the coming of the Son of Man, it's not the coming of the Son of Man, it's the sign in the sky of the coming of the Son of Man, is also the sky rolled up like a scroll. So when you see World War III, when you hear reports of thermonuclear war, okay, that war lasts 1 hour. It's the hour of God's judgment, the hour that the Antichrist comes to power, Revelation chapter 7, verse 12. Basically, World War III is, according to the Bible, World War III will last 1 hour. It will be the hour of God's judgment, and at the end of it, the 10 leaders of the government of the Antichrist come to power. And also in 1 hour, Babylon the Great is burned and destroyed with fire. So that's a scary thing, especially if you know that the United States is figuratively Babylon the Great. Then we look at the book of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, there's a lion eagle. I think it's Daniel chapter 7. A lion eagle gets trampled on and crushed by a bear. Okay, the lion is represented by Great Britain, the UK. The eagle is the United States. The bear is represented by Russia. And in Revelation chapter 12, the enormous red dragon is China. The Revelation chapter 13, the red dragon and the feet of the bear, that's Russia and China. So the Bible actually describes the lion eagle, which is the UK and the United States alliance, getting into a fight with a bear dragon, which is China and Russia. So, what we see, the tensions over Syria, the tensions over Venezuela. Remember, it's been a long time, but a Venezuelan submarine went missing. We used to hear reports that that Russia was sending their warships to the Mediterranean to help protect Syria. Now we don't hear any reports of that. Have we sunk Russian ships? Has Russia sunk some of our ships? And nobody's talking about it. The point is, World War III is still going to happen. We need to thank God that God has put a man in power that's holding that back. And the more time that goes by, the more we're able to upgrade our nuclear arsenal. I don't know if you know this, but Russia and China would have been better off if they had attacked back in 2016. Because since then, the United States has vamped up our nuclear arsenal. And then there's all this discussion about how the United States has decided to make smaller nukes. And why would that be a controversy? Why would Russia say they don't like that? Well, here's why. A smaller nuke means a lot of smaller nukes. In other words, imagine a nuclear cluster bomb. A cluster bomb is a bomb that separates in the air and covers a large area with a bunch of smaller explosives. The point for having smaller nukes is not a reduction in the nuclear arsenal. What they're saying is, instead of having 100 megaton nuke, they split all those 100 megaton nukes into 10 megaton nukes. And so if Russia is going to shoot some down, they might be able to shoot 1 or 2 down, but when you have multiple re-entry vehicles, the more you have, it's like what would you rather fight against? A swarm of bees? Or, okay, let's say you're going to fight against like the most fierce, vicious, okay, like a cat. A cat weighs, let's say, 10 pounds, okay? And you have a handgun. And let's say you have this wild cat coming at you and you shoot it. Boom. Now take 10 pounds of bees or hornets. If you have a handgun, you might kill 10 of them, 100 of them. But 10 pounds of hornets, in other words, smaller nukes means we plan on overwhelming our enemies by overwhelming them with a lot of smaller nukes. Does that make sense? Yes, and a small nuke is still huge. It's still, I mean, this report of 100 megaton nuclear submarine, I mean, I would think 100 megatons would crack a hole in the crust of the earth. I mean, that is such a huge, it has to be like some sort of propaganda. I mean, who would make 100 megaton nuke? If you consider that the nukes dropped on Hiroshima were 13 kilotons, okay, 13 kilotons. You go to 130 kilotons would be 10 times that size. And a 1.3 kiloton nuke, or megaton nuke, a 1.3 megaton nuke would literally be 100 times more yield, more explosive. In other words, 100 Hiroshimas all in one explosive, that is 130 megatons. So 100 megatons is like, basically is like 75 Hiroshimas all in one bomb. It's just ridiculous. It's overkill. Anyway, so be in prayer and keep asking God to push that date back, because I believe the dates are set as far as like, well, I don't know. But just be in prayer and just be praying for Donald Trump and also Nancy Pelosi and both sides of the political spectrum, the Democrats and the Republicans. Pray. I believe they're actually working together and publicly having friction intentionally to kind of cause like Russia and China to think that there's some anyway, there's politics that are going on that people don't know about. There's military operations that are happening that people don't know about. There's ships being sunk and aircraft being shot down, and a lot of that has ceased in the last couple of weeks. We haven't seen as many reports of aircraft being crashing. So it's time to be in prayer, because as assets are taken off the table, and as we get pushed closer to our final last defense is going to be this nuclear exchange. And the Bible in Revelation chapter 12 states that it's China, the enormous red dragon, that starts World War III. And that's Revelation chapter 12 verse 2, where the enormous red dragon sends stars from the sky to the earth. Now, whenever you see a red dragon, that's China. Okay, now the devil is the dragon. But when it's in the context of an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, the 7 heads and 10 horns represents the government of the Antichrist. And if the enormous red dragon has 7 heads and 10 horns, and we know that China is the red dragon, and whenever you see the bear, feet of the bear, Revelation 13, that's Russia. So we see that Russia and China ally themselves and become the government of the Antichrist in the end of the age. And that happens after World War III. So we can expect in the future, and I'm not sure when it's going to happen, full-scale worldwide thermonuclear war, and then Russia and China win and bring out the mark of the beast and go worldwide. And so that's the beast, the government of the Antichrist. Is Russia, China, allied with few additional nations. And yeah, just be in prayer. Call out to God. Jesus is Lord. Time is running out. Keep your heart right with God. Fall in love with Jesus. Get excited about the Lord. Just know soberly that the rapture... Listen, if the rapture didn't save Christians from World War I, and the rapture didn't save Christians from World War II, the Bible says that we have to go through... Basically, we go through World War III, then the mark of the beast comes out. We go through that, and in the midst of the mark of the beast being enforced is when the rapture happens, and the rapture only happens after the foolish virgins fall away and miss the bridegroom. So get ready, get your heart right with God, and be ready to stand firm in your faith in the midst of a hardship and trial. And that's what proves whose faith is genuine. The Bible talks about 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. Okay? That's talking about Christians. Matthew chapter 25. And the Bible says that the bridegroom was a long time in coming. In other words, it took him a long... Everybody was saying the rapture is going to happen right now. Or right away. And it didn't. The bridegroom didn't come. They started to run out of oil. And the end of the story is they missed the bridegroom. And he slammed the door in their face. They knock on the door, meaning they've been left behind. And they're calling out to God. God, what happened? How come the rapture happened and I didn't go? And he says, the door is shut. Okay? So you want to stand firm in your faith. Be ready to experience hardships and trials and stand firm in your faith. If Paul had to sit in a jail cell for many years and yet still served God. And if John had to sit in a jail cell, and if Antipas was put to death for his faith, if Stephen was put to death for his faith, then in the end of the age, those who are not willing to die for their faith will end up taking the mark of the beast. And if you're so in love with the things of this world, even as Christians, the whole purpose of the mark of the beast is to weed out the weeds from among the wheat. Okay? And the Bible talks about that in Matthew chapter 13. So it's time to get your heart right with God and be ready, soberly knowing that there's hardships coming, and be ready to stand firm in your faith. And remember, ultimately, it's just you and God. You may have family members that you love and you want them to be saved, but ultimately, when it really comes down to it, you need to be ready to run with the Lord and drop everything else to walk with God. That means family has to take second place, third place, fourth place. Your employment, the things of this world need to be very secondary to the coming of the Lord and your anticipation of being with God. Okay? So, anyway, it's another heads up. Oh, and I had set a date. I had said December 20th. Remember, I saw a vision where I saw a countdown of 90 minutes and it was counting down. And so I calculated 90 days and it ended up being December 20th. Well, on that day, December 20th, was the day that we announced our withdrawal from Syria, and Mattis resigned, all in that same day. And I had said the 19th, 20th, and 21st, and the 19th, 20th, and 21st of December was when we would announced our withdrawal from Syria, and Mattis resigned. And that's kind of, to me, it's just another date that I set that I thought World War III was going to happen, and it didn't, but some other significant event. And somebody told me, well, there are significant events every day. No, there's not. There hasn't been a significant event for... Actually, the most recent significant event would have been our announcement of our withdrawal from Syria. Okay, so it was a significant event. God has also given me another date, but I'm not sharing that on YouTube anymore. Just seems like nothing ever... Something's going to happen on that date, but I don't know what. And it's in the middle of this month, a little bit past the 15th. But it's time to get your heart right with God. When World War III happens, the Bible says everybody's hiding in the dens of the rocks and the caves of the mountains, calling out to God. And that's Revelation chapter 6, verse 17, somewhere in there. So, just be in prayer. Fall in love with God and keep God first, and know that you're going to have to go through hardship and trials to prove that your faith is genuine. All right, stand firm.